I in presentation mode, I can't see everyone, but I'm Courtney. Thank you all for joining. We have quite a few members of the CMC team with us today. And we just wanted to go over some processes for international students in particular, and also hear from two of our rising second years about what their first year looked like, and hopefully give some advice that would be helpful to you all, especially over the summer as you gear up to get here in Nashville and Owen. So first and foremost, here is a quick run through of our staff. These are the coaches on the team. So hopefully, I wanted to bring this up because these are the faces that hopefully you can work with over the summer to get your resume ready and be even more on top of things for the start of school. So we're available all summer, and you can book appointments with us through 1220, our career system under appointments. Emily, who's on the call, is our director and works with our finance MBAs. I'm Courtney and work with our consulting MBAs. Sandy Cannett works with our MBAs doing human resources, operations, and healthcare. And Kathleen has moved into a marketing and technology coach within our MBA team. Brooke is the director of Specialized Masters and works particularly with the Data Science Institute students. Jenny Ling is the MSF coach. And Zeke is joining our team in a week, I think. He is going to be the MMARC coach and is very familiar with Owen, has worked with us before, and has been a part of the admissions team most recently. So hopefully they will be some familiar faces. And additionally, these are the members of our employer relations team. This team works with our employers, many of whom are alum, to interface with them and hopefully pull jobs for you all to apply to, and they work behind the scenes within 1220 and manage that entire system. So Heather's the director, Emma is an assistant director, and then Noah is our operations coordinator, and they know all things with what's going on in the system, so are very helpful to you as you get familiar with the system. Hopefully, if you have questions, you know to reach out to them. And I'll pass it off to Emily to go over the agenda.
Courtney, will you advance the slides or?
Yes.
Okay, great, because I couldn't see that I could. Well, good morning, everyone, or whatever time of day it is where you currently are. We're excited to begin to talk to you and get to know you as we begin the summer and get ready for you to head to Nashville, where we will meet you in person in August. So today we wanted to talk a little bit more about working in the US and what it means with regards to the visa status in the US and getting work authorization. And with that in mind, we wanted to give you a bit more detail about the recruiting landscape for graduate students in the US that are seeking visas. And then we'll go into what it's like to look for opportunities and managing the barriers, especially the barriers around work authorization that we have here. Give you a sense of where resources are, and then finally help you develop your plan. And we do have two great rising second year MBAs that can offer their own advice. So we're going to go through these slides pretty quickly because we do want to leave a lot of time for the students that are with us to answer your questions. So go to the next slide. So I'm not sure how much you all are familiar with what the work authorization and visa process is in the US, but right now, as you come into a student status at Owen, you will either be on an F1, most of you will be on F1s. A few of you may be on a J1 visa if you're a Fulbright scholar or have a special consideration. But with your F1 status as a student in the US, there's certain benefits that come with the visa, and one of them is your ability to do a practical application of the degree plan. So you will have access to CPT if you're doing an internship, and CPT stands for curricular practical training. and it will allow you to work in your field of study as an intern during your course of study here. Once you graduate, you will have at least 1 year of work authorization through your F1 visa. So that is called OPT, and that's optional practical training. If you are pursuing a concentration or a degree in a STEM field, you can get up to 2 more years of optional practical training, OPT. So you could get a total of 3 years of work authorization with your F1 visa. After that, you would need sponsorship by a company, an employer, and they would file on your behalf an H-1B visa, which is available to highly skilled workers in the U.S. So this is a very dense slide, and we will send this back out to you so you can have it for reference. But this kind of goes over what I just said. So the STEM extension that allows for an extra 2 years of work through the OPT, which is associated with your F1 visa. And then there's some more information about the H-1B visa. The thing to remember about H-1B in the US is that there's only 65,000 of these visas that are given out each year in the US, and that is for everybody that is a highly skilled worker. So you can see it's not a lot. So because there's more applications for this H-1B visa than there are actual visas, the US government will hold a yearly lottery. So when you come to graduation time, and if your employer files for an H-1B visa for you, they will file the application. The application will go into a lottery, and then there's 65,000 that are granted out of the number of applications, total applications that are submitted that year. Because of high demand for these visas, there's usually about 30% of the H-1B applications are approved each year. So that right there, that one thing is the thing that makes work authorization in the US problematic. It is also why a STEM extension is important for you, because while you're on your OPT authorization through your F1, it allows you to go through the lottery multiple times. So that gives the employer opportunity to submit a visa application for you 3 and possibly even 4 times, depending on the timing of this. So we wish that the immigration system was different here. We don't think that this is a great way to do it, but it's been the system for years here, and it doesn't look like it's going to change in the near future, but there's always hope. So with that being said, at Owen, we do have good outcomes for students. So 95% plus of MBAs accept internships by early June. We're at that right now. I think there's only 4 students that are left seeking at this point. On the MSF side, it's looks good. 95% of MSFs accept employment by 3 months post-graduation, and over 90% of MBAs accept full-time positions in the US by 3 months post-graduation. Most of the years it's over 95%. So employment outcomes have been good, but we just want you to understand that the process itself is difficult and time consuming, and could be in some cases nerve-wracking. So we're here to help you get through it, but I just want you to know going into this that it is, it is quite the process. So one of the things that is important for you to know as an international student seeking a visa is what your timeline looks like. So this is a general timeline of when offers are received for the MBA classes. So you can see for an internship, there's approximately a little over 20% of the class will have an internship by the end of the calendar year, so by the end of December. And most of the offers are received in the winter months into the spring. But the thing to notice is that international student offers generally lag behind domestic student offers. The primary reason for that is there's just fewer job opportunities for international students in the US because of this visa system. So you can advance it to the next slide. This is the current class, the MBA class of 2024, and you can see that the lag is real. The offer differential between US and US work authorized and non-work authorized was a bit more pronounced in the winter than what we had seen previously. A lot of this was due to the tech industry, because many of you will be pursuing opportunities in the tech industry, and our tech recruiting was down as it was across the US in the winter months because of the uncertainty in the market. And we are definitely tied to market realities here. Hiring, it definitely follows trends. We are still sitting, there's a lot of hiring that has happened, but there definitely was a lag that we saw during the winter, and it's still relatively slow. Here's a current MSF class. You can see that MSF class, there's a lag, but it's a little less than it is on the MBA side, especially as you get towards the summer. Generally speaking, MSF students, because it's a STEM designated area, and because a lot of the recruiting is directly into the financial services industry, which does have, a relatively good amount of opportunities for international students, the lag is less pronounced than it is on the MBA side. And that's the current MSF class right there. So you can see they're almost on par with the domestic work authorized students. So I'll turn this over to Brooke, and since he supports data science, he can give you more information on what happens with data science.
Sounds good. Thanks, Emily. Quick question before we start looking through data science is, I'm just curious, do we have, and we were just looking at stats for MSFs. Are there MSFs here if you want to use a reaction, a thumbs up or something like that to let us know, or chat if there are MSFs joining us incoming? Anybody? Okay. What about data science, since we're about to run through? Oh, we've got, okay, Gregor, awesome, one MSF. What about data science students? Any data science students that are with us? If so, go ahead and raise your hand, give a thumbs up, or drop something in the chat box. Okay, well, just in case you're being quiet, I'll talk through this quickly. But you can see, I mean, this is no big shock. This looks pretty similar to what you saw for some of the others for this internship. So first year students, I will say something, if you notice, for data science, we're only working with 2 years of data. We just don't have, if we've only been working with data science for a little over a year and a half. But you can see, same thing, a lag for non-permanent non-permanent work authorizations compared to permanent work authorizations. If you look at the next slide, this looks at full-time offers. So data science is a 2-year program similar to MBA. I was interested to see that while it's close, the timing for permanent work authorizations and non-permanent receiving offers, that there are a couple places that it does bump up or is pretty even for the two. So it's interesting to see that. Again, just 2 years of data on that. But yeah, but interesting to see. So next slide, you can take a look at this and you can kind of see some of the takeaways from that. As you'll notice, certain job functions, certain industries tend to be especially open and receptive to international candidates, finance, operations, analytics. By MBAs, you can see there's a couple of industries that there are real hubs for them. Tech is a big one, especially for MBAs and for data science, as you can imagine. If you're an MBA, Amazon has traditionally been a huge hire of international candidates. Same for data science. We've also had a number of folks head that way. Consulting for Masters of Finance and for MBA are more common paths. Some Masters of Marketing as well. By the way, I didn't Master's Marketing, anybody from that group? It's a smaller group of international students, but if you would give a reaction or say something in the chat if you're a Master's of Marketing. I'll say we have very small numbers of past international students from that program. So that's why when we were going through the charts above, we didn't have a breakout for that. Banking, a big place, especially for MSF graduates. And then I think a biggest takeaway, something you kind of saw is because there are fewer opportunities, there's just that lag for those with permanent work authorization. So we kind of talk about some of the challenges. This gets to what some of our suggestions are, some of the proactive things you can start doing now to help to work given the challenges that we've just described, right? A lot of the things we're just looking at are things that are outside of our control, just like the economy is. But we in our office really try to focus on what are the things that we can do regardless of the economy, regardless of visa lotteries and things like that. So if you're here right now, you've got a good start on that. Point number one, you're starting early. We hear this again and again. You may be thinking, wait, why are we having this session? Like, I'm not even on campus yet. If you're here with us, if you're watching the recording of this, we're doing this now because it's important to start these things. And the sooner that you start these things, the better your chances are going to be. One of the things that you can start doing now is working on your resume, updating it, getting it ready to go. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. Second point, Emily just gave a quick run through of CPT, OPT, and STEM benefits. If you aren't familiar with the Vanderbilt International Student Services Office, we often call it ISSS for the acronym. That's a place you want to be very familiar with because they're going to hold your student visa. If you're on an F1 visa, they're going to be the ones granting the CPT and OPT and STEM OPT. So you're going to want to work a lot with them. We traditionally have them come and do some sessions with us. So that's big. You want to think about your transferable skills, not just the skills you've used in the past, the skills you're going to be using in the future, and what are some of the examples of times you've used those. Third step, as you can see, you want to have a multi-pronged plan. You want to have some backup options, some plan Bs, some parallel plan Bs. A lot of our international students have done some searching for opportunities in their home country, simultaneous with pursuing opportunities here. If you want to be here, we want to do all we can to support that, but we also don't want you to have that be your only thing that you're looking at. And another thing is you're going to hear this again and again. It is so important to be connecting with other people, building relationships and networking. And we'll talk more about what that means here in a bit. So if you want to see an example so this is an example of an MBA student, and I will say it looks pretty similar for a lot of our specialized master students of why it is that we talk about starting early and what it takes to be getting some really strong competitive offers. We took one first-year MBA student and we broke down what it was that they did. Somebody who was pursuing options in consulting and healthcare, and this was a lot of the different activities. So they were engaging with companies that were on campus. They were engaging in the workshops that our office provided. They were doing career exploration, listening to different student panels and people who work in different areas. They were doing a lot to prepare for interviews, especially case interviews for consulting that can be pretty intense. They were meeting 11 different times with the coaches. And you can see there's a lot of different things involved with that. So please know that there are good opportunities out there, but it takes a lot of hard work. So, I mean, when you think back to those graphs we were showing you how there was that lag in almost every single one, it was either pretty much equal or there was a lag for when international students were receiving offers to domestic students. Why is that? I think this slide right here kind of outlines the challenges that you're facing. There's a limited number of US work visas. It's been that way for a number of years, I believe since the 1980s. The number of visas has been the same. Everybody that we've talked to says there's no expectation that that's going to change. The next thing you can see here is, I think in some countries, I know, for example, we've had students coming from the United Kingdom, students coming from India, and they talk about how in those places, how it really, a lot of times, if you do really well in certain tests, if you do really well in certain grades, you're pretty much guaranteed a position. And those things are important and they certainly are helpful, but it is not the only factors that are involved, which gets to the second and the third and fourth point, which is that interviewing is very important in the US. I know in some countries they'll have people do more assessments, and certainly some areas like data science, we see students who will be given an assessment where they have to use SQL to complete a project or something like that. So there are some examples like that, but so much of interviewing is on the behavioral side, or even case interviews where you're really being asked to interact with other people, to share your stories, to tell about why you're wanting to pursue a certain role or a certain employer. And the third point gets to the professional network. The professional network is so important. I think when we have talked with international students, so many of them are surprised by how important it is to develop relationships with people who are working in the areas that they want to be in. And that's especially heightened if you're interested in places that what we call client-facing roles, consulting or investment banking, where really so much of your job depends on your ability to build relationships with others. So these are some things, going a little bit more in depth, some real specific concrete steps of what we'd encourage you to do next. We're going to talk a little bit about 1220. Hopefully you've already signed up, you're already in there, you set up your profile. There's a lot in the resource library to use there, so we hope that you're making most of that. If you're a Master's of Finance student, you probably, if you noticed a couple of slides back, the timeline, Master's of Finance recruiting, especially if you're looking at investment banking, recruiting timeline is so early. Interviews can be happening in August for especially consulting or banking roles. So it happens so quickly. And that's part of the reason there's a specific career curriculum that's in Brightspace for the Masters of Finance students. Please, if you're a Masters of Finance students, Gregor and others, please be working through that. Another thing you really want to do over the summer is explore the different career options you have. Think about what are the different things you can do with your different degree and how you want to leverage those. We talked about your resume. We have a Vanderbilt format resume. So it's something that we encourage you all to use. We're going to be sharing resumes with employers, and they ask that the resumes be standardized. So you'll be seeing a lot about that. That's a great thing to be working on over the summer, and especially to be thinking not just about the skills you've used in the past, but hand in hand with the career exploration we're talking about, what are the skills that you need to demonstrate for the roles you want to pursue? That's especially important for anybody who's making a career transition. A number of our MBAs are often doing that. Some of our data science students and others can be doing that as well. So be thinking about that. With the work you're doing on your resume, a lot of that will help you with your LinkedIn profile. This is a great time to be following LinkedIn profiles for people who you admire, people who are doing the kinds of work that you want to do. And then networking. When we're going to say networking a lot, we could have a much longer discussion about that. And we'll give you a good reference. If you want a book that you can read that really gives you some great ideas of what networking looks like in book form, we'll share that in a little bit. But in essence, when we say networking, what we're talking about is building relationships. We're not talking about, that you have to go in there and sell yourself to somebody. And, I think some people think about that idea of networking and they say, oh, that sounds fake. It sounds not like something I'd want to do. It sounds unpleasant. And we're not talking about that. We're talking about building relationships with the people that will help you. They'll help teach you, that you'll hopefully be able to help them in ways, but you'll mostly just be learning so much from their experience as someone who's a little bit further along the career process than you are. And then interviewing, especially if you're thinking MSFs, if you're thinking about doing investment banking, anybody who's thinking about doing consulting, the sooner you can start on some of those technical and case interviews, the better. And behavioral interviewing was going to be something that everybody is going to be using in their interviews. So the more you can practice telling your stories, telling about yourself, thinking about why you want to pursue certain roles and industries, the better. 1220, we talked about this specifically. There's this resource library in 1220. If you haven't checked that, please check that. There's a lot of great materials there. You can see a screenshot of that. And then also events. You're here at this event, and we have a lot of other events coming up. I'll give a quick shout out. If you're in the MMarc, MSF, or data science programs, we have some sessions that are coming up specifically for you all. And then there are a couple of sessions coming up that are more MBA focused, but others can join as well. They're around specific industries. So there's a lot of sessions we're doing over the summer. Please take advantage of that. When the school year starts, you all are going to have so much on your plates, especially, possibly moving to a new country and getting settled here and getting living arrangements. It's going to be busy. So the more you can do over the summer, the more you can start early, the more it's going to help yourself. So I think the last thing I'm going to talk about briefly is, if you're looking for some things to read over the summer, I will make 2 suggestions, and we've been suggesting these and had international students read them, and they've given good input. So the first book is The Tool or Job Search. This is written by someone who did career services for a number of years at Duke Fuqua. He recently left to full-time just talk about some of his books and career services. So this is someone, the author of this is someone who is an ex-engineer, And he takes sort of an engineer's approach to sort of taking apart the job search and what is it that you do. And he really gives you a step-by-step, a 3-step approach broken down into more detail. And he gives you a lot of great examples. I mean, his 3-step process very quickly is, number 1, create a list of companies that you're interested in and identify contacts to those companies. Number 2, after you've prioritized that list of companies, start reaching out to them, reaching out to the contacts you've identified. And he gives you some sample emails and examples of how you kind of want to start thinking about that. 3rd step is have conversations with those people. And he gives you kind of frameworks for working through that. But really, I mean, basically that book is teaching you very step-by-step how to network in a way that makes a lot of sense in the US job force. So that's a great book. The next book was written by someone who was an international student and got his MBA and coached international students for a number of years, Marcelo Barros. He does a lot of great things on LinkedIn. But that book, I think, is really written for this crowd, for people who are international students coming to study in the US. And there's even a chapter on there on how to make the most of the career services at your school. So those are a couple of resources if you want to do a little bit more reading over the summer.
And Marcelo is going to join us for you all right before orientation, I believe, or there's an international specific orientation, and we've pulled him in for in-person, which is really exciting. Okay, the main event. I think Christian was able to join us. Olu, I see you. And the first thing I would love to do is have you all introduce yourselves. As I mentioned before, these are rising second years, so I guess we call them second years. Yeah, I don't know. But first, Christian, could I have you introduce yourself, what you're studying, and where you are this summer?
Sure, Courtney, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Christian Sanders. Before coming to Owen, I was a portfolio manager in the Central Bank of Peru. I'm doing concentrations in finance and ops, or at least as a plan for now. And I may also do strategy, but I don't know if I have the time. Where I'm going during the summer, I'm going to go to Bain in South America, in the Santiago office in Chile. And I think that's good enough for introduction.
Yes, thank you. Olu?
Hi everyone. Before coming to Owen, I was trained as a pharmacist in Nigeria, and I worked as a sales manager with Reckitt in the capital city of Nigeria, Abuja. In Owen, my concentration is in healthcare, marketing, and strategy. I've currently started my internship at Eli Lilly at Indianapolis. It's a fun place. I'm hoping to see more Owen students here next summer.
Oh, yay. Okay, I'm so happy to see y'all's faces. It's only been like a couple of weeks. And so anyway, okay, so the first thing, we've mentioned this, Brooke and Emily have getting a jump start over the summer would really behoove all of you all. So the first question I have for the two students are, if you remember, what did you do over the summer, last summer, before arriving in Nashville or at Owen? Just the months prior to the August kickoff, what did you do or take advantage of?
Sure. Should I go first? I think mainly as hard work, I was working on my resume. But I also did a little bit of career exploration. At least from my side, I had quite a unique situation that I was sponsored by my company. So I had the freedom to basically explore new career paths without much risk. So I want to know what the main career paths were after an MBA. And I did a lot of investigation regarding that. And through that, I saw that consulting was quite a common outcome. So I did some technical preparation because we were sent, I don't know if this is a case for this year too, but we had access to management consulting. So I did some I didn't prepare, but I did use it to see what kind of preparation I was going to expect during Owen for consulting. So I saw what cases were, the math you needed to do for consulting and all that. I didn't prepare a lot, but I did at least prepare myself for the process I was going to do during Owen. But I will also say that, at least for me, it's important to strike a balance. You don't want to feel like overwork when you arrive in Owen, because the first month is going to be very, very time demanding. So try to strike a balance between advancing the resume, doing career exploration, doing any preparation you want, but also like try to relax before going to the first month, because it's going to be very busy. That's
Olu?
it.
Yeah, this time last year, I remember I just reached out to Courtney for a resume review. I remember my resume back then in Nigeria, and I thought it was something great. And Courtney went through it, and she was like, "No, no, no, no." Then she had to send me the standard resume of Vanderbilt, which Brooke just spoke about. So I had to like go over it again, and I actually used it in applying for a couple of pre-MBA opportunities. There are a couple of pre-MBA opportunities, especially from the MBBs and Amazon, and I think EY, because I remember two Nigerians got their internship from the pre-MBA opportunities, which I would advise anyone on this program to make sure they take opportunities off. Aside that, I was also preparing for interviews for internship opportunities I will be getting as soon as I get to the United States. Basically, that's what I was doing this time last year.
I had forgotten that. Thanks for the shout out. I hope I wasn't horribly mean. So you each had very unique experiences. It's hard to generalize what an international recruiting process looks like. So again, I just want to say these are two instances. There's hundreds more. But could each of you, I'm going to start with Olu, sort of detail, especially what your fall looked like and how you ultimately came to the Eli offer. I believe you were involved in national career fairs, perhaps what the prep looked like for that, timing, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, I came into the US, I think August 19 last year. I thought it was just gonna be a fun ride, like more like a long vacation kind of, but trust me, it was a save. School started on 100% almost on day one. You're trying to get yourself settled with your finance, accounting, statistics. It wasn't fun, and you're also trying to like get recruiting in shape, and while you're doing that, you want to get your resume on point. You want to do your elevator pitch review with the CMC, also probably behavioral questions review with staffs of the CMC. Then I think just a few weeks afterwards, we had to be in Atlanta for the National Black MBA conference, where you'll be interviewing with multiple firms. When I mean multiple, if you want to interview with 50 firms that day, the choice is yours. And you have to actually come prepared because you're practically interviewing on your foot. And most people get their offers from there, especially people of color like myself, which you want to take advantage of. So I think my major advice I'll be giving to most people here today is just make sure you're prepared because everything is happening very fast and you just have to be prepared. And if you just want to start the preparation as soon as you get to Owen, that might be actually late for you. So the earlier you start, the better for you.
And could you remind me, what was for National Black in particular, did you have interviews lined up prior to going into the conference, or was that all traction that you gained in person in Atlanta?
I had one with Biogen before the conference, but during the conference, I think I had about 3 more. And I think in total, I had about 4 interviews, and then I think I got 3 offers out of the 4 interviews I got here.
Okay. And then was there any, after that conference, was there any on-campus involvement, further recruiting for you, or were you done?
So I'd already done a couple of coffee chats before going to the conference, and I didn't just want to like not just end it like that. So I had to continue with a couple of them, and later sent them mails that I wouldn't be able to take it further than that. I think that happened with Genentech, that happened with Amgen for me, and I think I'd also gotten I was also done with Amazon's interview as when I got back from the conference too. So there were a couple of them like that, but you'll be fine.
A lot of traction. This is a great story. I didn't remember all of this.
I already had an offer, so that didn't matter anymore.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. Christian, so I still don't know if I know all of the intricacies of how this all happened for you. So you had traction with international offices of MBB, BCG, and Bain in particular, and along with other things. So I'd love to just hear how your fall went, and what you were involved with, and then how the heck you got traction with these offices that we haven't often had traction with.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I know it's a particular experience. So I would say that my fall after my career exploration I mentioned before, I was sure I wanted either something finance related in tech or consulting. So I went with that in mind. I would like to say, especially for international students, the first thing that surprised me a lot is how that there's a very small number of companies that actually sponsors, at least in finance. That was my experience. So the more the fall advanced, the more I was focusing on consulting a little bit more because I knew that MBB did a sponsor. So I did do some preparation with the consulting club. Definitely, I went like for 5 sessions. I didn't case a lot because I started getting interviews with like some tech companies, with some finance companies like Goldman Sachs. And that's when what you mentioned happened. I got this interview with Bain South America. I will go about how I got it later, but I did get the interview, and I had like 4 weeks to start casing, and I don't recommend that. So if you're going to try consulting, start casing early. It was not a great experience. And basically, about BCG, I didn't really apply to BCG outside of the US. What happened was I applied to BCG Dallas. I got to the final interview, and they say no, but we want you in Peru, basically. So not much more I can say regarding to BCG. How I got that interview in Bain. So basically, before coming to the MBA, there was like a pre-MBA event for Bain in Peru. I had a friend that worked there, and she basically told me, hey, you're going to an MBA, look at this event, go. And I went there, I spoke with some partners, with some managers, and they basically told me, yeah, as long as you apply here, you're going to get an interview. Just become good at casing and you'll do it. So because obviously these offices are smaller and they're fighting harder for talent, if you don't mind the opportunities outside of your country, and if you're good at casing, I'm sure you'll have great chances if you don't mind it. And also, honestly, the pay is still very good outside of the US in consulting. So I highly recommend at least looking at the opportunity if you're not adamant about staying in the US. I'm missing any part of the question, Courtney? I don't remember.
No, I think you're right. The one thing I seem to recall in your tech traction, you went pretty far with was it Google maybe?
Yeah, I got to the last interview with Google, but sadly I couldn't get it.
Okay, and was that a process that you did off-site, like through Alumidol, or just on your own?
So some alumni helped me with basically explaining the process to me, but with like tech in general is not as network heavy as other areas, I will say. So honestly, for Google, I basically just applied, and obviously I spoke with alumni about like how the process is, but I didn't do much networking, honestly. I feel that tech in general is not very network heavy. It's mostly your resume and maybe sometimes, depending on the company, having someone recommend you.
Yes, great. Thank you. So we sort of talked about what y'all did over the summer, what the fall looked like. And some of you've called out OSC, the Consulting Club in particular, or CMC coaches. Could you review resources that you used particular to prepping, or, was it particular alum? Was it the 1220 system? Was it Rocket Blocks? I'm mentioning lots of things. I promise you all will become familiar with this, but talk about the resources that you utilize that maybe you can call out for students to have on their radar.
So in my own case, I'd always had the idea of continuing in healthcare when I get to the US. The major resource that was most helpful for me was my peer coach, which was Renji Kazim. Obviously, he had gone before me, so he knows it before. He also interned at Eli Lilly last year. He was of so much help to me, especially during I think the weekend before the National Block. We had to go through a lot of the behavioral questions together, what's going to look like. I was able to fine-tune my stories for me. Also, we had to go through my elevator pitch, running through my CV together. That was like the most helpful resource I actually had in my own case. Yeah.
And can you explain quickly, sorry, Christian, before we go, will you sort of outline what a peer coach is? from your point of
I
view?
didn't get that.
Can you outline what a peer coach is in case folks haven't heard that term before?
Okay, a peer coach is just a second year student that has done well. Obviously, we've seen the first year, we've seen everything that's all about. I've also said internship before you, so we can tell you how it looks like and put you through. Basically, that's it.
Yes, you all will have access to peer coaches as well. It's just a nice thing that we do at Owen, which also helps you get to know other folks in the building, which I think is really great. As Brooke mentioned, relationships really help you throughout this process. Christian, resources.
Yeah, sure. So I will say that every workshop that the CMC gives is very important, especially obviously those ones that are geared toward your goals. Like consulting ones, like casing ones. You sometimes invite some expert casers to give some talks. I think that's very useful. In general, I will do some, at least, behavioral interviewing, practicing. It's very important in the US. Brooks, I think, mentioned before how different the experience is for international students. You cannot fathom how different it is. Like, at least in Peru, networking, doing this kind of interviews where you sell yourself as a story is not as important. And it's a huge difference. I will 100% focus some time in doing behavioral interviews. That's very important. Other resources, especially particularly for consulting, I really like I said before, management consulted before coming to Owen. And during Owen and during the consulting club, I did use some Rocket Blocks. It was, it had some cases, it had some preparation for the math part of casing. It was very good. I'm trying to think if I did use anything else. Oh, when I got the BCG interview, I got access to some other cases and like another platform, and I think it's free access. I think it was pretty good. So I don't remember the name now though, but if in the future, if anyone wants to send me an email, if they want to also prepare with it, I can help with that. But in summing it up, I will say CMC resources, you will have a lot of like workshops and that kind of stuff. Use it. Definitely, if you're going consulting, use whatever resources that university give you for free, Rocket Blocks, management consulting, all that is very useful. And definitely, if you want to do anything in particular, be it IB, for example, join the financial club. If you want to do consulting, join the consulting club, because you will have all experience of people that have recruited for that the previous year. So that'll be very useful.
Awesome. Thank you. Olu, did you do the healthcare club?
Yes, I joined the healthcare club. The healthcare club is one of the best club I think at Owen. There's this particular Professor Larry. I've forgotten his last name right now. It's one professor that probably knows everybody in healthcare in the United States, and you can probably just reach out to him, and he can always put a word in for you. It's just the best thing that's going to come out of the healthcare club. Trust me. So I think, if you're chasing a career in healthcare, you should be in the healthcare club, and you should actually be very close to Professor Larry.
And you will hear from the club leadership almost immediately once you get on campus. So have no fear if you feel like, oh, what does this mean? Am I supposed to be doing this summer? Please don't worry with that. You will hear from everyone, see their faces. So get ready for that. It's great. The clubs are fantastic. So I will certainly open it up to questions. We'll have a few minutes for that. But my last question for you all is, if we haven't gone over anything, what tips and tricks do you have for these students who are probably traveling across the world, perhaps living in the States for the first time, gonna, be inundated with a lot of newness? Were there any learnings that you had, recruiting related or just adjustment to life in the States that you would pass on to these students?
For me, I'll say, especially for Nigerians, coming in here, we don't do so much of coffee chats when you're recruiting in Nigeria. You're gonna find it's like a bit absurd. Like, am I trying to, like, I don't know, it's just a bit weird. But it's not so much of a big deal, but you're also confused on who to reach out to, which is why the CMC should actually always be like your go-to place almost every day. I remember going to meet Ita almost every day and asking for I'll probably give her a list of firms I want to recruit with, and she would give me a list of people she thinks I should actually shoot emails to for coffee chat requests. And it actually helped so much. I could remember she giving me people to reach out to at Amgen, at Genentech, at I think BMS, Bristol Myers Squibb, Lilly, a couple of the healthcare companies, and it really helped so much. And that way I was able to streamline the people I was going to reach out to and not just be on LinkedIn 24/7, not knowing who to talk to and who not to talk to.
That's great. Christian?
Yeah, I would say the first advice, something I didn't do and I wish I had, start looking for a place earlier, because as the closer you get to August, you have late places to rent, and they will be more expensive, honestly. Also, at least what I did was look for a roommate, and it worked out pretty well. It's another first year, well, now second year. Are we second years now already, Courtney? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not used to
Let's
saying
say 1.5. You're a student, and honestly, it worked out so great that we are already renewed our lease. So it was, and also this experience like with someone else from their country was pretty interesting. But yeah, look early for a place to stay. Like Olu said, I think being international, it will be a shock how heavy the networking side of recruiting is in the US. Like, honestly, here in Peru, if you like a job, you send a resume, and if you're a match, you'll get an interview. In the US, it is kind of expected to do coffee chats, to look for, like, add someone in the company on LinkedIn, speak to them, say, hey, who can I speak with to get like more information? They want to see that your interests, and that's a very huge difference with other parts of the world, I think, at least. What other? Yeah, honestly, I think that was the major shock for me, was the networking part. It was hard to adjust to, and actually, I don't know if I have adjusted yet, but it is a huge difference, and you have, at least if you're very adamant about getting a job in the US, you should try to adjust to that part of the process. And like I said before, the interviews are very behavioral focused, so you want to learn how to be very both precise, concise, but also like tell your resume as a story, as how you solve problems in your previous work, how did you manage hard situations. All that is very, very important in the US.
Another thing I would love to add is almost everybody has to actually learn how to case, because casing is not just restricted to people going to consulting. Even coming to healthcare, you're going to be casing at your interview. I remember my interview with Eli Lilly, I think it was 30 minutes casing, 30 minutes behavioral. You're not going to escape it. So you just have to learn how to case properly.
Love that shout out. Yes, thank you. So I can't see everyone's head box, so I'm going to open it up to questions. But Broker Emily, could you help navigate who? Okay, and you can put things in the chat if you don't want to come off mute. But does anyone have any questions? Ivan?
Yeah, hi guys. Thank you very much for hosting the session. So I have a question. So the thing is that actually I have no intent to like overstay in the United States. So I believe that like 3 years OPT through the STEM OPT extension would be just more than enough. So therefore, like my question is, would it actually somehow affect my chances or affect the pool of possible companies that I can apply? I mean, since I know for sure that many companies here say that we do not offer, would not like to, offer, like give any offers to those who would like to apply for H-1B visa. Yep.
Emily, do you want to go?
Sure. So it's a bit more complicated from the employer standpoint, and it's when we give answers, you're going to have to take it as we can't represent all employers out there or every given scenario. So it's going to be a bit general, but if a company is investing, especially in a graduate level employee, they're not going to look at it as a temporary work situation where you could fill your 3 years and you could go back. and you shouldn't probably even signal that you are going to want to come back. They will want to hire someone that they can train and that has longevity at the company. So while you have your own priorities and your own, decisions that you would have to make, unfortunately, from the employer standpoint, unless they wouldn't view you as someone that would only be around for a couple of years.
Yeah, thank you. That makes perfect sense, actually.
Yeah. So you would 3 years, you're just gonna have to recruit like you're gonna stay here for, the extent of your work
Got
authorization.
it.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
sure.
I see one question in the chat. What does on-campus recruiting look like at Owen? I know, Olu, you did a lot of stuff off campus, but could either of y'all speak to some of the on-campus happenings, especially in the fall, what things looked like?
Yeah, if you remember, I was also a CMC associate or recruiting or something like that. So yeah, so you see a lot of companies sending representatives to Owen to give talks, and also they'll tell you what the recruiting timelines looks like and all of that. So you have to make sure that you're always on a 1220. 1220 is just like your Instagram at Owen. You have to be on it every day and make sure you look at every appointment that's there. Do I want to work with this firm? You have to book your appointment and all of that. But you have to make sure you be on 1220 every single day. That's your new Instagram handle where you get to Owen.
I'm using that as a quote. I'm writing it down in the chat too. That's amazing. Oh my gosh. Christian, do you have anything to add to that?
No, honestly, I agree 100% with all of. Basically, you'll have a lot of companies coming and speaking about the process within their companies. Use 1220 a lot. You'll have a lot of friends. Actually, the first month I missed quite a few because I was focusing on academics. I will say try to still, I know first month will be hard, but still try to like be up to date with all the events going on 1220 because they're very useful. All of them. But yeah, I don't have much to add to Olu's response, honestly.
Something I will point on that too is there is a difference how that can look for MBA students versus specialized master students. Certainly it differs a little bit by the specialized master's program, but with MBA class being larger, there's typically more employers that are coming specifically for MBA students. Like with data science, I know one of the professors, Professor Blocher, has a class where he invites speakers to come, the employers, and they'll come and share from their experiences. Masters of finance students and masters of marketing students have often found a lot of success recruiting more through the Vanderbilt Wide Career Center, the Vanderbilt Career Center, and their career system. They have a comparable system to the 1220 system that everybody on this call will have access to. So yeah, so it can look a little bit different. So I just think that's worth mentioning.
And I see there's a question about tech hiring, Amazon in particular, and I'll gladly speak on that. So tech hiring is down, and I think official publications say particular large firms especially are on hiring freezes. However, I found that the Amazons of the world in particular would have rolling news. So you would apply and perhaps go through their assessment in even November, and then hear back in Feb. You'd get a note saying you're still in consideration, but we're on a freeze. And then we had quite a few students in February, March, even early April get notice back that, hey, you're still under consideration. Do you want to go to the final steps? And we do have interns who have onboarded for Amazon this summer. I was finding more, it wasn't just a home for our international students, which I think in the past, it really had been a huge focus for international students, and it's opened up to a lot more. But that's not to say that they don't have interns. So it's smaller, and it's a different process. It's more delayed. It's strung out throughout the whole year, which can be frustrating, but still exists.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I definitely want to make sure everybody hears that the tech hiring process could last all year. You could go through initial assessments early in the fall, not hear anything, and then in the spring, all of a sudden be pulled into a final round or a decision is made. Tech also uses technology in the recruiting process. So some of your classmates in different, pursuing different industries, their recruiting process may be very constricted. You know, you go to an information session, you submit an application, you do a first and second round interview, and then you would hear relatively soon afterwards. With tech, it's all across the board, and that it becomes frustrating and nerve-wracking. So you have to come in the process knowing that there's little control you're going to have on the process. The companies control the process, and so we're here to help you and support you, but just know that it can be long.
And I'll wrap up with this last question, in particular, going off of the tech spin with CPGs and tech companies. I would just say if they're more tech focused, it could be a longer process. However, CPG roles, Mattel immediately comes to mind for us. They're a huge partner of ours. They have a very defined process, which is great. And you'll follow a traditional cycle of fall interactions, networking, applying late November, December, perhaps even through January, and then interviewing in January and February. When you're looking for CPG roles, CPG companies, you just want to see what information you can find on their prior hiring. So have they hired internationals before? Do they explicitly say that they still do? That's going to be information you want to have before really engaging in a lot of networking or putting all your eggs in that basket. Okay. I just want to say a huge thank you, especially Olu. I didn't know you had started already. So thank Eli Lilly too for giving us your time. And Christian joining from Peru. I really appreciate it. I know the students do too. I'm maybe overstepping, but I think you all would agree that you're open to reach out if folks have questions, especially once they're on campus in August. You'll see these faces. I'm sure they're happy to interact with you all. And I speak for the CMC that, of course, you can reach out to us at any time. So just thank you. And thank you to all of you who joined.